Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
I'm Aaron.
A social deduction drafting game? New Salem, 2nd edition. Boom, let's do it. So it is important to note, we actually did a Kickstarter preview for this game back when it was on Kickstarter, and this is actually the Kickstarter edition. This is also the 2nd edition. It adds a sort of expansion that is pretty integral to the 2nd edition format, I guess. I guess the expansion is the 2nd edition. They're kind of the same thing.
So as Tom alluded to, this is a social deduction game where you're going to be drafting cards and playing them.
Alluded? Tom just said that straight out right.
That's true.
Every player is given their secret identity, and you're either going to be a witch or a normal villager. And on your card, there are different icons, which are different building types that you would like to collect, which you'll get bonus points for as you collect them.
Right, because while it is a social deduction sort of team game, there is the villager team and the... I guess villager isn't the right word. Pilgrim?
There's
the cultists and investigators.
God. There's the
witches
spies.
and the non-witches.
Yeah, so they are on a team because depending on the player count, but there's usually multiple witches and multiple Puritans, that's the word. But you don't just win as a team. It is... Either one of those teams will be sort of eligible to win, and then amongst the team that is eligible to win, whoever has the most points.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like Legendary, where you can win, but then whoever has the most points wins. Or a lot of other.
All right, sure. Like Legendary.
He tried to convince us of that before. I'm like, very little is that connected to Legendary.
No, I'm just saying there's a few games out there, or oh goodness, the other. What is that game? Oh my goodness, it's a very popular game by Plaid Hat that everybody
Dead
plays.
of Winter?
Yes. Isn't there one true winner?
You have a private objective.
Yeah, you have a personal goal.
So there's not a winner. It's does your team win and do you win within?
But the thing is, you're comparing it to a semi-co-op game, and I don't know if I'd consider team games or this specifically a semi-co-op game.
Well, yeah, because all four of us could be, if you're playing a 4-player
witches.
game, we could all be Puritans, and then
Yes.
we're all working together to just make sure we don't lose by having these the despair tokens come out.
Yeah.
Because we can lose just because of that, and then there was no witches, but we were all blaming each other for being witches, and
putting each other on trial.
and stuff like that. So we end up getting too much despair, and we lose. So I mean, it's almost there. It's definitely not a perfect.
It is definitely an interesting thing, though. The fact that not only are you trying to win points the most at the table, but you're trying to get your team to win, and you don't have to have the most points at the table, because if the person who has the most points at the table is on the other team, then you can still beat them with less points as long as your team is the one that's eligible to score.
I do like the idea that when we're drafting these cards, we're trying to get sets, and the sets are shown by the color and symbol and these little half moons and half triangles, the square things. But they make panoramas. Mm-hmm. That's just so nice.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that.
That definitely is a really cool thing, be making the panoramas. Mm-hmm. But what you alluded to there was the fact that a big key part of this game is the drafting of cards. Mm-hmm. And now in this edition, they want you to draft the same direction every turn. We definitely recommend that you don't do that.
Yeah, I can only think that maybe by adding more mechanics in the game, he wanted to make it simpler. We'll add more mechanics, but we'll make the base game a little bit easier or something. Or that way, he didn't want to have to put, pass to the left, pass to the right, pass to the left, pass to the right, or something. But yeah, even in Brian did the designer did a little how to play video, and he said, in first edition you swapped the directions. In 2nd edition, you don't, but you can house rule it. You should house rule it.
Yeah, because almost any game where you always draft the same direction and it's competitive, the way we're sitting right now, Tom has such control over what I'm doing, because he could just say, "Oh, he's got to complete a green. He will never get a green card again if I can help it," and that's not that great. But with the drafting, not only is it just drafting is cool, but there's so much of watch what I give that next person and what they choose to take, and then what they say about it. Because you can challenge them of hey, you're adding a lot of the bad stuff, the skullduggery or
despair.
to the game.
They are skulls.
Why did you do that? And you're like, oh, well, it's the only one that I could pick. And you're like, no, I gave you this other one too. And you have to be careful of which one you pick because of that same reason. That's where a lot of the like information that you get comes from.
And a lot of the cards being drafted are also a sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like completing these sets that aren't for points, but that are, either adding 3 to spare or cleansing 3 to spare at the end of the game. You could be like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to get this third one and clear out all the despair, and you don't, or vice versa.
Yeah, and I've actually had it happen where, so when you have 2 cards left, you can either draft one of them and discard the last one, or discard both of them, take the top card. And there's those sets where, like, so I cleared a despair, but at the end of the game, if I complete the set, we're going to add 3 despair, so it kind of, like,
negates it and adds an extra one, yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm never going to complete this because I'm a Puritan and I don't want it to happen. And I draw that top card. It's like, no, like I had to add it. I'm like, well, now, I mean, at least you guys saw me draw it off the top, so you can't completely blame me for doing it.
And it's very important that, so I played this recently with some of my friends from Cool Stuff, and they didn't really like it all that much. And they were saying they had 2 complaints. One, they said that they thought the draft itself was kind of boring. They were just like, well, this one completes my set, so I'm going to take it, right? Kind of really reduct it down.
Especially if it's on your thing.
I mean, yeah. But, I mean, there's also the hope and despair thing you got to focus, because hope is currency for events. But then notwithstanding, they were also like, well, we don't think that the draft fit in with the social deduction aspect all that well. And what I would argue is I'd say that can happen if 2 things. One, if you just have like a bad flop, like the events just happen to be really powerful for one side early on, or I was a witch and I was constable first and there was nothing I could do, and then I was never constable again to trigger events, so I didn't really have any tools at my disposal during that time. But also it can be an issue if you're just not accusatory, or if you get accused, you don't defend yourself. Like some people like just figured out who the witches were really early on, and we didn't have anything that we could have said.
That's kind of fair for all social games, though. Like, if you're playing Resistance and somebody goes on a mission and plays a fail card, and everyone's like, oh, I think it was Tom, and Tom's like,
yeah, but I feel like there's the assumption when sitting down that, oh, if I call somebody out and whatever, it doesn't really matter, we can still play the drafting game. But really, you want to make these 2 marry, and you have to facilitate that a little bit. You have to make sure that everybody at the table is defending and saying stuff and calling people out and accusing, because you can't. Again, you could do that. You could be like, you could think, oh well, it's not that big a deal whether I get called out or not. We'll just play a drafting game right now, and it doesn't.
But it would be a very stale just drafting game.
Yeah.
Like, it's not as good as Budding Kingdom, where like you're just drafting and like doing things, and you could completely ignore the other person, except like, oh well, he's going over here, I better draft this so he doesn't, like, you can hate drafting that. The hate drafting isn't as much because you're trying to like balance hope and despair, and you're trying to like, if you're playing into the social deduction part of it, like, okay, remembering what you're passing to people. Is he collecting that just because it's the color on his thing? Like, is he only collecting pink this entire game? Like, okay, maybe he's getting bonus points for that, so I'm not going to really call him out for that. But if he's, like, collecting a bunch of the white ones to get a bunch of despair at the end of the game, then you're like, that's very fishy. I passed you a bunch of other things that you could have chosen other sets.
Mm-hmm. And the events also convincing people to give you hope and then lying to them, that's something that honestly you should do just for the lulz.
It's like, I'm definitely going to trigger this event, and they give you all the hope, and you're like, no, I'm going to trigger this other event.
Hey man, give me your hope. Trust me, I'm going to do cleansing and we'll get rid of the despair. It'll be awesome. We'll be that much closer to the witches not winning. Okay, cool. Sweet. Thank you for giving that to me. I'm putting you on trial.
So this game also has the constable expansion with it, which gives you this cool constable mini, which is kind of like the round
3D construct.
3D construct. It's definitely not a mini. A mini would be a pretty cool addition, but 3D construct. And basically they're like a round leader, and they're the one who gets to pick what, like, they are the one who are buying events. And like Tom said, I can get hope from anybody, but they have to give it, like, I can't just take it. They have to offer it to me. And if they offer it, I have to take it. So you can kind of, like, if you think somebody's a witch and you're not sure, you can, like, force
hope
upon them and see what they do with it.
Yeah, if they have enough hope to trigger the most expensive event, they have to trigger an event at least.
Yeah, and then once you trigger an event, you give this to somebody who doesn't have one of these tokens, and you take one of these tokens.
Yeah, somebody who wasn't a constable.
And that helps like 2 people from just going back. If the witch gets this and they figure out who the other witch is, and they just keep it and they don't let any of the Puritans ever have it, this is a really good way of preventing that from happening.
This isn't my favorite social deduction game, but I do like that it's different from other social deduction games just because it's the drafting. It can kind of like change up what you're doing in a game night. If you like to play social deduction games, you're tired of playing Werewolf, you're just like dealt your card and you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to play into this. Or you're tired of playing like
Resistance or Coup.
Or the Cthulhu one. Or, just like, you want something different. That's what this has to offer.
I'm just kidding.
Don't mess with Cthulhu.
I know. The Cthulhu May Die is the big one.
Cthulhu
Death May Die. What? Shut up, Tom.
I agree with Aaron that this probably isn't my favorite social deduction game, but I do have a really good time with it. But again, I would understand people who don't really like it because of the idea that you really have to facilitate the marrying of those 2 games. You can't just feel like, well, it's not, once we solve the social deduction, we can just play a drafting game or something to that effect. You really have to facilitate being lively and being accusatory and being defensive and thinking about the draft, not just in maximizing my points, but in how it affects the team and what am I passing to somebody else. So there is a decent amount on you to make this a good time. But when you I don't want to say correctly, but when you play it in that manner, I always have a good time.
I'm absolutely right in par with these guys. I think it's a great game. If you haven't played social deduction games, this isn't the first one I'd recommend that you check out.
True.
But if you like social deduction games, I would definitely recommend that you do check this one out by clicking the purchase link in the description box down below.
And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored. So I haven't played Old Salem, but this one's fun.
I just want you dead. I just want you dead.